The bridge of the Dominion's edge was quiet, except for the soft hum of computers. Admiral Vextar stood with his 6 arms crossed behind his back, looking out at the stars through the massive window. His purple skin glowed slightly in the dim light. The ship was huge, 2 kilometers long, and filled with the most powerful weapons in the galaxy. "Sir," called out Lieutenant Zeph from his station. "We have something strange on sensors." Admiral Vextar turned around. His large yellow eyes focused on the young officer. "What kind of strange?" "There's a ship coming from the outer rim. It's very small." "Sir." The Admiral walked over to look at the screen. He had been in the Galactic Empire Navy for over 50 years. He had seen every type of ship in known space. But this was different. "How small?" he asked. "Only 200 meters long." "Sir." "Made of basic metals, iron, steel, some titanium. Very primitive." Admiral Vextar laughed. His deep voice echoed across the bridge. 200 meters. That's not a warship. That's barely a shuttle." He looked at his crew. Probably some lost mining vessel from one of the colony worlds. The other officers on the bridge started to laugh too. Their ship was 10 times bigger than whatever was approaching. The Dominion's edge carried enough firepower to destroy entire planets. What could a tiny metal ship do against them? "Sir, they're sending a message," said Communications Officer Thel. "Put it on screen." The main display lit up. A human face appeared. The alien looked strange to the Imperial crew. 2 eyes instead of 4. Pink skin instead of purple or green. Hair on top of his head. He wore a simple blue uniform. "This is Commander Minho of the United Earth Space Navy vessel Soul's Pride," the human said. His voice was calm and polite. "We are peaceful explorers from the planet Earth. We request safe passage through this space sector." The bridge fell silent. No one had ever heard of Earth or humans before. Admiral Vextar stepped forward. "I am Admiral Vextar of the Galactic Empire 3rd Fleet. You are in Imperial space. All unknown vessels must surrender immediately for inspection." Commander Minho smiled slightly. "With respect, Admiral, our star charts show this area as unclaimed space. We have no hostile intentions. We simply wish to continue our research mission." "Research mission?" The Admiral's eyes narrowed. "In that tiny ship, what could you possibly research with such primitive technology?" "We study ancient civilizations and lost cultures," Minho replied. "Our ship may look simple, but it serves our needs well." Admiral Vextar had heard enough. This human was clearly from some backward world that had just discovered space travel. They probably built their ship from scrap metal and hoped for the best. It was almost sad. "Listen carefully, human," the Admiral said, his voice getting harder. "The Galactic Empire has ruled space for 3,000 years. We have conquered over 10,000 worlds. Our technology is beyond your understanding. You will surrender now, or we will take your ship by force." On the human ship's bridge, Commander Minho looked at his crew. His navigation officer, Tyan, was a young man with short black hair. His science officer, Doyan, was older, with glasses and a calm expression. His weapons officer, Hiram, was a woman with her hair tied back in a neat bun. "What do you think?" Minho asked them quietly. "Their technology is interesting," said Doyan, "but it seems very old, maybe 400 years behind our current level. Their weapons are basic plasma cannons," added Hiram, "nothing our shields can't handle." "The ship design is inefficient," said Taeyon, "too big, too slow. Probably uses 10 times more energy than needed." Minho nodded. He looked back at the screen where Admiral Vextar was waiting for an answer. "Admiral, we appreciate your concern for security," Minho said, "but we must decline your demand. We are in neutral space on a peaceful mission. We have broken no laws." The alien admiral's face turned a darker shade of purple. "You dare refuse the Galactic Empire? You insignificant creature. Your entire species probably still lives in caves." "Actually, we eliminated poverty about 200 years ago," Minho said calmly, "and we've been exploring space for quite some time now." Admiral Vextar was getting angry. No one had ever talked to him like this, especially not some primitive alien in a metal box that barely qualified as a spaceship. "Weapons officer," he shouted, "prepare a warning shot. Let's show these humans what real power looks like." "Yes, sir." The weapons officer began charging. The main plasma cannon, plasma banks at 50%. "Ready to fire. Fire across their bow. Don't hit them directly. I want them to see what happens when you anger the Empire." The Dominion's edge fired. A bright green beam of plasma shot through space. It was the same weapon that had destroyed rebel fleets and conquered entire star systems. The beam struck the space just in front of the human ship. "But something was wrong, sir," the weapons officer said, confusion in his voice. "The energy reading. It's strange." "What do you mean strange?" "The plasma beam? It didn't dissipate like it should have. It looks like their ship absorbed it somehow." Admiral Vextar stared at the screen. The human ship was still there, completely undamaged. Not even a scratch on its metal hull. On the human ship, Chief Engineer G1 looked at her console. She was a young woman with bright eyes and quick hands. "Commander," she called out, "that plasma blast just recharged our power cores by 12%. Should I send them a thank you message? Commander Minho almost smiled. That won't be necessary, Jawan, but keep monitoring their weapons. They might try again. Back on the Imperial ship, panic was starting to spread. How is that possible? Demanded Admiral Vextar. Our plasma cannons can destroy a city. That ship should be vapor. I don't know, sir, the weapons officer replied. Maybe their shields are stronger than they look. Shields. Look at that ship. It's made of scrap metal. There's no way they have shield technology. But the human ship continued to float calmly in space. No damage, no emergency signals, no panic, just sitting there like nothing had happened. Admiral Vextar felt something he hadn't experienced in decades. Confusion. His mighty warship had just fired on a tiny vessel, and the tiny vessel had completely ignored it. Open communications. He ordered. Commander Minho's face appeared on screen again. He still looked calm and polite. Is there something else we can help you with? Admiral Minho asked. How did you survive that plasma blast? Oh, that, Minho said casually. Your plasma cannon technology appears to be several generations behind our current defensive systems. No offense intended. The bridge of the Dominion's edge fell completely silent. Several generations behind. Their most advanced weapons were primitive compared to this small research ship. Admiral Vextar felt the first cold touch of fear creeping up his spine. What exactly were these humans? Admiral Vextar stared at the screen in disbelief. The human commander looked completely relaxed, as if giant warships firing plasma cannons at him was normal. Several generations behind, the admiral repeated slowly. That's impossible. The Galactic Empire has the most advanced technology in known space. Commander Minho tilted his head slightly. I'm sorry if I offended you, Admiral. We don't mean to be rude, it's just that plasma-based weapons haven't been used by human military forces for about 400 years. 400 years, Lieutenant Zeph whispered from his station. But we just developed these cannons 50 years ago. Admiral Vextar heard him and felt his confidence shake. You're lying, he said to the human. No species could be that advanced, especially not one we've never heard of. We're not trying to prove anything, Minho replied calmly. We're just peaceful researchers. We study old civilizations and their histories. We really don't want any trouble. The admiral's pride was hurt. The entire Galactic Empire was built on the idea that they were the most powerful force in space. Every species they met either surrendered immediately or was destroyed. No one had ever called their weapons old technology before. Weapons officer, Admiral Vextar said through gritted teeth. Charge all plasma cannons to full power. Target their engines. Sir, are you sure? Full power could destroy their entire ship. Maybe that will teach them some respect. On the human ship, Weapons Officer Hiram looked at her console. Commander, they're charging all their weapons. Full power this time. How much energy are we talking about? Asked Minho. Science Officer Do-Yun checked his readings. About the same as a small nuclear bomb. Their targeting system is trying to lock onto our engines. Chief Engineer Ji-Wan laughed softly. Should I reroute the energy to our coffee makers when they fire? We could use some hot drinks. Let's not be too casual about this, Minho said, though he was trying not to smile. They think they're being serious. We should respect that. Back on the Imperial ship, the weapons were ready. All cannons charged and ready. Sir, reported the weapons officer. Fire everything. Full spread. 6 bright green plasma beams shot out from the Dominion's edge. Each beam carried enough energy to crack a moon in half. They all hit the small human ship at the same time. The space around the human vessel lit up like a star. Energy crackled and sparked as the plasma beams struck the ship's shields. The light was so bright that the Imperial crew had to look away. When the light faded, they looked back at their screens. The human ship was still there, still intact, still floating calmly. In space, impossible, breathed Admiral Vextar. Sir, the weapons officer said, his voice shaking. All 6 plasma cannons hit their target. Direct impact, but there's no damage at all. What about their shields? They must be overloaded. That's the strange part. Sir, their shields seem stronger now than before. We fired on the human ship. Engineer Ji-Wan was checking her displays. Well, that was interesting. Our power cores are now at 140% capacity. I've never seen them this charged up before. Should we be worried? Asked Navigation Officer Tyan. Not really, Ji-Wan replied. Our shields can absorb about 50 times more energy than that before we'd need to worry. Science Officer Do-Yun was studying the alien weapons data. Fascinating technology, though very inefficient, but interesting from a historical perspective. It's similar to what humans used during the early space age. Commander Minho opened communications again. Admiral Vextar, are you finished with your weapons test? The alien admiral's face appeared on screen. His purple skin had gone pale, and his yellow eyes were wide with shock. How? Was all he could say. How? What? Minho asked politely. How did you survive? That was enough firepower to destroy a battle station. Oh, that. Minho looked thoughtful. Well, our defensive systems are designed for deep space exploration. We encounter all sorts of dangerous energy phenomena out there. Solar flares, radiation, storms, gravitational anomalies. Our shields have to handle much worse than weapons fire. But that's impossible. You're using primitive materials, steel and titanium. Actually, it's not about the materials, explained Science Officer Doyen. Stepping into view, it's about how you use them. We've learned to work with what we have instead of just making things bigger. Admiral Vexstar felt dizzy. His entire understanding of technology was being challenged. Then why do you use such simple metals? Because they work, said Minho simply. Why use expensive exotic materials when basic elements can do the job better? Steel is reliable, easy to repair, and doesn't break down after a few years like some advanced alloys. Engineer Jiwan joined the conversation. Plus, if something goes wrong, we can fix it with simple tools. Your ship probably needs special equipment for every repair, right? The Admiral thought about the maintenance bays on his ship. Dozens of specialized machines, rare materials that had to be shipped from across the galaxy. Technicians who needed years of training just to replace a simple component. This is madness, he muttered. It's just different thinking, said Minho. We learned long ago that the best solution is usually the simplest one. Communications Officer Thel spoke up from his station. Sir, we're receiving a priority message from Imperial Command. Not now, snapped the Admiral. Sir, it's marked urgent. They want a status report on the unknown vessel. Admiral Vexstar closed his eyes. How could he explain this to his superiors, that a tiny ship made of scrap metal had completely ignored the full firepower of one of the Empire's most powerful cruisers? Tell them we're still investigating. Sir, the weapons officer said quietly. What do we do now? Our weapons don't seem to affect them at all. Admiral Vexstar looked at the human ship on his screen. It sat there peacefully, like a small fishing boat next to a giant war vessel. But somehow, the fishing boat was winning. Maybe we should try reasoning with them, suggested Lieutenant Zeph. Reasoning. The Admiral's voice cracked. They just proved our best weapons are useless. What's left to reason about? On the human ship, Commander Minho was having a quiet discussion with his crew. Should we tell them the truth? Asked Hyarem. What truth? Replied Taeyon. That this isn't even a military ship. We're researchers. Our weapons are just mining lasers and asteroid deflectors. And that every civilian ship in the human fleet has better defenses than this, added Jiwan Minho. Considered this, let's not overwhelm them all at once. They're already having trouble accepting that their weapons don't work. Science Officer Doyon was studying his sensors. Commander, I'm detecting more ships approaching. Imperial design. Looks like reinforcements. How many? 3 more vessels. All the same class as this one. Minho sighed. I was hoping this would stay simple. Admiral Vexstar had also detected the approaching ships. His reinforcements were arriving. For Imperial cruisers against one small human vessel. Surely that would be enough. But as he watched the calm faces of the human crew on his screen, doubt crept into his mind. What if 4 ships weren't enough either? What if nothing was enough? For the first time in his long military career, Admiral Vexstar began to wonder if the Galactic Empire had finally met something it couldn't defeat, and that something was a tiny research ship made of steel and titanium, crewed by polite aliens who apologized for having better technology. 3 more Imperial cruisers dropped out of hyperspace. Each one was as large and powerful as Admiral Vexstar's ship. Their hulls gleamed with armor plating, and their weapons bristled like the spines of angry beasts. This is Admiral Vexstar. To all ships, he announced over the fleet communication channel. We have encountered an unknown vessel with unusual defensive capabilities. Surround the target and prepare for coordinated attack. The 3 new ships moved into position. Captain Morgeth of the Iron Talon spoke first. Admiral, that's a very small ship. Are you sure we need 4 cruisers? Trust me, Captain Vexter replied grimly. This is no ordinary vessel. Captain Zalara of the Starhammer laughed. It looks like a mining barge. What could it possibly do against the Imperial fleet? You'll see, muttered Admiral Vexstar. The 4 massive warships now surrounded the tiny human research vessel. From any direction, the humans were outgunned by thousands to 1. It should have been like 4 elephants surrounding a mouse. On the human ship, Navigation Officer Taeyon watched the aliens position themselves. Commander, we're completely surrounded. 4 ships, all aiming weapons at us. Are you worried? Asked Commander Minho. Taeyon shrugged. Not really. Their weapons are still the same type. Just more of them. Science Officer Doyen was running calculations on his computer. Even if all 4 ships fire at once, we can absorb the energy easily. Our shields are rated for much higher loads. What about returning fire? Asked Weapons Officer Hyarem. Let's try to avoid that, Minho said. We're supposed to be peaceful explorers. Remember, Admiral Vexstar opened communications to the human ship. You are now surrounded by the Imperial Third Fleet. You have no chance of escape. Surrender immediately and prepare to be boarded. Commander Minho appeared on screen again. Still looking. completely calm. Admiral, I appreciate your persistence, but we really haven't done anything wrong. We're just trying to continue our research mission. Research? Captain Morgeth broke into the communication. What kind of research requires such advanced defensive systems? Well, said Minho, thoughtfully, we study dangerous places, old battlefields, dead civilizations, unstable star systems. Sometimes there are radiation bursts, gravity wells, or automated defense systems still active. We need good shields for safety. Captain Zillara laughed harshly. You expect us to believe your little mining ship can handle things our warships can't? I wouldn't call it a mining ship, said Science Officer Doyon, stepping into view. We're archaeologists and cultural researchers. We study how civilizations rise and fall. Prove it, demanded Admiral Vex. If you're really just researchers, show us your ship's interior. The human crew exchanged glances. Commander Minho nodded slowly. Very well, but please don't be alarmed by what you see. Alarmed? Captain Morgeth snorted. What could possibly alarm us about a tiny research vessel? Minho touched a control on his console. Juan, please reconfigure the ship for research mode. Yes, sir, came Engineer Juan's voice over the intercom. The Imperial crews watched their screens as something impossible began to happen. The small human ship started to change shape. Panels slid open along the hull. Sections that looked like armor plating folded back like flower petals. Hidden compartments extended outward. Within minutes, the compact vessel had transformed into something completely different. Where there had been a simple metal ship, there was now a floating research station. Laboratory modules extended from the main hull. Observation decks unfolded like wings. Sensor arrays telescoped outward. A large transparent dome appeared at the front, revealing what looked like a botanical garden inside. By the Emperor's beard, whispered Captain Zillara. That's impossible, said Captain Morgeth. Ships can't just change shape like that. Admiral Vextar stared at his screen. The human vessel was now 3 times larger than before, but it had gained the size by unfolding hidden sections, not by adding mass. This is some kind of trick, he said weakly. Commander Minho smiled. No trick, Admiral. This is what our ship actually looks like when we're working. We keep it in compact mode for travel, but we need space for our research. Through the transparent sections of the transformed ship, the Imperial crews could see the interior. There were laboratories filled with strange equipment, libraries with thousands of data storage units, medical facilities that looked more advanced than anything in Imperial hospitals, gardens where plants from dozens of worlds grew under artificial sunlight. Show them the cultural center, suggested Communications Officer Simon. Good idea, Minho replied. A new section of the ship became transparent. Inside was a large hall, filled with artifacts, artwork, and displays from countless civilizations. Holographic projections showed the rise and fall of ancient empires. Digital archives contained the histories of species that had vanished millions of years ago. We preserve knowledge, explained Minho. When civilizations die out, someone should remember them. We collect their stories, their art, their discoveries. We make sure they're not forgotten. Science Officer Dojan added, we've been doing this for over 200 years. We have records from over 10,000 extinct civilizations. 10,000. Admiral Vextar felt dizzy again. Some very old, said Doyan casually. We found ruins from species that built stargates 50 million years ago. Amazing engineering, though their weapon technology was quite primitive. Captain Morgeth's voice cracked slightly. You study civilizations that old. Time is relative in space, replied Chief Medical Officer Nari, joining the conversation. She was a middle-aged woman with kind eyes. We've learned that every species thinks they're the most advanced, but there's always someone who came before, and someone who will come after. What about weapons? Demanded Captain Zillara. Our sensors detected weapon systems on your ship. Weapons Officer Hiram appeared on screen. Oh, those would have mining lasers for extracting artifacts from rock, particle beams for clearing debris, gravitational manipulators for moving large objects. All standard archaeological tools. Those are mining tools? Admiral Vextar asked. Well, we call them that, said Hiram. I suppose if you pointed them at a ship instead of a rock, they'd work as weapons. But that would be wasteful. Why destroy something when you can study it? Engineer Jawan's voice came over the intercom again. Commander, the alien ships are really interesting from an engineering perspective. Very large, very powerful, but not very efficient. They use about 50 times more energy than they need to. 50 times, repeated Captain Morgeth. Their power systems are fascinating though. Continued G1. Primitive, but stable, like studying ancient technology. We could learn a lot about early spaceflight development from ships like theirs. The Imperial officers fell silent. The humans were talking about their most advanced warships like museum pieces. Commander, said Admiral Vextar slowly, what kind of ships does your military use? Military. Minho looked confused. We don't really have a military anymore. We haven't needed one for about 300 years. No military. Then how do you defend yourselves? From what? Asked Minho genuinely. Most problems can be solved with conversation and understanding. If something can't be talked through, well, he gestured at their ship. Our civilian vessels are fairly durable. Civilian vessels. Captain Zillara's voice was barely a whisper. Of course, said Minho, this is just a university research ship. Every human exploration vessel has similar capabilities. We need them. For safety in deep space, the bridge of Admiral Vextar's ship was completely silent. If this was what human civilians could build, what would their actual military technology look like? The thought terrified them all. The emergency meeting of the Galactic Council was called at midnight. Chancellor Mordock stood at the center of the Great Hall, his 6 eyes scanning the worried faces of representatives from across the Empire. The massive dome above them showed stars from every corner of known space. Council members, Chancellor Mordock began, his deep voice echoing in the chamber. We have received disturbing reports from the Third Fleet. Admiral Vextar has encountered an unknown species with technology that appears to surpass our own. A murmur of disbelief rippled through the assembled aliens. Senator Calthex from the warrior world of Brickstar stood up. His red skin was marked with battle scars. Impossible, he declared. The Empire has conquered 10,000 worlds. No species has technology better than ours. That's what we thought, replied the Chancellor. Grimly, he activated a holographic display showing the encounter. Watch this. The council members saw Admiral Vextar's ship fire its full weapons load at the tiny human vessel. They watched the plasma beam strike the target. They saw absolutely no damage occur. This must be some kind of trick, said Councillor Vexani. From the science world of Kepler, no ship that small could have such powerful shields. It gets worse, said Chancellor Mordock. He showed them the transformation of the human ship. Council members gasped as they watched the small vessel unfold into a massive research station. Shape-shifting technology, whispered Senator Thor. From the industrial world of Grixton, we've theorized about it for centuries, but never achieved it. Intelligence Officer Kieran stepped forward. She was a tall, thin alien with blue skin and large black eyes. Her job was to know everything that happened in the galaxy. Chancellor, we have more reports, she said quietly. This is not an isolated incident. What do you mean? Our spy networks have been checking records. These humans have been seen before. Ships matching this description have been spotted in 17 different sectors over the past 50 years. The council chamber erupted. In shocked voices, Chancellor Mordock raised his hand for silence. 50 years, he asked. Why weren't we informed? Because no one thought they were important, Kieran replied. The reports described small, primitive-looking ships, mining vessels, research craft, exploration ships. Everyone assumed they were refugees from some forgotten colony world. How many ships? Demanded Senator Calthex. At least 300 confirmed sightings, possibly more. The number hit the council like a physical blow. 300 advanced ships. Flying around the galaxy undetected for 50 years. Councillor Vexani's voice shook as she spoke. Have any of them ever been hostile? Never, said Kieran. In every encounter, they were polite, peaceful, and helpful. Several worlds report that human ships provided medical aid during emergencies. Others say they helped with mining operations or scientific research. They've been helping us. Senator Thalmer sounded confused. It appears so. On the world of Nextera, a human ship stopped a plague that was killing thousands. On Beltron, they helped repair a damaged space station. On Corvish, they provided food during a famine. Chancellor Mordock felt a cold fear growing in his chest. They've been studying us, sir. Think about it. 50 years of observing our worlds, our technology, our capabilities. They know everything about us, but we know nothing about them. The terrible truth settled over the council chamber like a heavy blanket. The humans hadn't just appeared. They had been watching the Galactic Empire for decades, learning its weaknesses, understanding its technology. What do we know about their homeworld? Asked Councillor Vexani. Kieran checked her datapad. Almost nothing. They call it Earth. It's apparently in an unexplored region of space. No Imperial ships have ever been there. Why not? Because we've never bothered to explore that area. Our expansion focused on resource-rich systems. The region where Earth is located seemed empty and worthless. Senator Calthex slammed his fist on his desk. We need to send a war fleet immediately. Destroy them before they become a threat. With what? Asked Chancellor Mordock quietly. What do you mean? Our most powerful ships couldn't scratch their research vessel. What makes you think our war fleet would do better? The council fell silent. They were the rulers of the greatest empire in galactic history. They commanded fleets that could destroy star systems. They had conquered civilizations across the galaxy, and they had just discovered that their most advanced technology was centuries behind a species that considered them unworthy of notice. Meanwhile, aboard the Soul's Pride, Commander Minho was having his own meeting with his crew. The ship had returned to its compact travel configuration, but the Imperial ships still surrounded them. Commander, said Communications Officer Soman, we're receiving a priority transmission from Earth. It's Admiral Junho. Put him through. The screen displayed an older human man with gray hair and wise eyes. He wore the uniform of the Earth's Defense Force, though defense was mostly a traditional title now. Commander Minu, Admiral Junho said, "We've been monitoring your situation. The Galactic Council is in emergency session right now." "How do you know that?" asked Science Officer Do-yeon. "We've been monitoring their communications for decades. They're quite worried about you." "About us?" Minho looked surprised. "We haven't done anything threatening. You've shown them that their technology is obsolete. To a military empire, that's the most threatening thing possible." Navigation Officer Taeyun leaned forward. "Sir, are we in danger?" Admiral Junho smiled. "Not from them, but it's time to make a decision. We've been debating this for years in the Earth Council. Should we make formal contact with galactic civilization, or continue to observe from a distance?" "What's the decision?" asked Minho. "The time for hiding is over. You've already revealed our existence. Now we need to decide how to handle first. Contact properly." Engineer Jiwon spoke up from her station. "Are we sending a diplomatic team?" "Already on the way," replied Admiral Junho. "Ambassador Seojin is leading a proper first contact mission. She should arrive at your location within 6 hours." "What should we do until then?" asked Minho. "Keep being polite, keep being helpful, and try not to scare them any more than you already have." The transmission ended. The human crew looked at each other with mixed feelings. "First contact," said Weapons Officer Hiram. "After all these years of studying other species, we're finally introducing ourselves. I hope we do it right," said Medical Officer Nari. "They seem very frightened of us." Commander Minho nodded. Through the view screen, he could see the 4 Imperial warships still aimed at his vessel. Their crews were probably terrified, confused, and desperate. "They have good reason to be frightened," he said quietly. "We've accidentally proven that everything they believe about themselves is wrong." In the depths of space, more human ships were moving toward the meeting point. Not warships, humans didn't build those anymore, but exploration vessels, research ships, diplomatic craft, and cultural exchange platforms that the Galactic Empire was about to learn what a truly advanced civilization looked like, and they were completely unprepared for the revelation. 6 hours later, space itself seemed to shimmer. Admiral Vexstar watched his sensors as something impossible happened. Ships began appearing out of nowhere, materializing like ghosts, becoming solid. First came 1 vessel, then 3, then 10. Within minutes, 20 human ships surrounded the Imperial fleet. But these weren't warships in any sense that the aliens understood. The ships were beautiful. They moved like living things, flowing through space with perfect grace. Some looked like flowering plants made of metal and light. Others resembled sea creatures swimming through the stars. A few appeared to be made entirely of crystal that bent starlight into rainbow patterns. "How many ships?" whispered Admiral Vexstar. "Confirmed," replied his sensor officer. "Sir, I can't get proper readings on them. They're using some kind of technology that makes our scanners useless." Captain Morgeth's voice crackled over the communication system. "Admiral, these ships. They don't match any known design. What are they?" Before Admiral Vexstar could answer, a new voice came through the communications channel. It was calm, wise, and completely confident. "Greetings, Admiral Vex. I am Ambassador Seojin of the United Earth Federation. I apologize for the confusion our research vessel has caused." The main screen showed a middle-aged human woman with silver hair and kind eyes. She wore simple white robes that seemed to glow with their own inner light. Behind her, Admiral Vexstar could see a ship's bridge that looked more like a garden than a command center. "Ambassador," Admiral Vexstar said, trying to keep his voice steady. "Are these your warships?" Ambassador Seojin smiled gently. "We don't build warships anymore, Admiral. These are diplomatic vessels, cultural exchange ships, and scientific platforms. We brought them because first contact is very important to us." "First contact." Captain Zillera broke into the conversation. "You've been in our space for 50 years. Observing and learning," said Ambassador Seojin. "We wanted to understand your civilization before introducing ourselves properly. We've learned that first contact can go badly if it's rushed." A new figure appeared beside the ambassador. He was an older man with a gentle face and scientific instruments floating around him like a personal constellation. "I am Dr. Woojin, scientific advisor to the Earth Federation," he said. "We've been studying galactic civilization for decades. Your history is fascinating, though we noticed some concerning patterns." "Concerning patterns?" demanded Senator Kalthex, who had joined the communication from the capital world. "You rely heavily on force and intimidation," Dr. Woojin explained kindly. "Your technology focuses on making things bigger and more destructive rather than more efficient. Your society is built around conquest rather than cooperation. That's how empires work," shouted Captain Morgeth. "Perhaps," said Ambassador Seojin, "but we've found better ways." Chancellor Mordok's voice joined the conversation from the capital. "Better ways? You claim to be superior to the Galactic Empire." "Not superior," Ambassador Seojin replied. "Just different." We learned long ago that the biggest ship doesn't always win. The loudest voice doesn't always speak the truth. The strongest fist doesn't always solve problems. Admiral Vexstar felt compelled to ask the question that was eating at him. Then, how do you solve problems? How do you defend yourselves? Usually, by talking, said Ambassador Seojin simply. Most conflicts happen because people don't understand each other. When you understand someone, you can usually find a solution that works for everyone. And when talking doesn't work, pressed Captain Zillara. Dr. Wujin stepped forward. Then we use other methods, but we prefer not to discuss those unless absolutely necessary. Show them, came a new voice. Everyone turned to look. Commander Minho appeared on screen from the research vessel. Ambassador, they've been trying to intimidate us for hours. They fired their most powerful weapons at a civilian research ship. Maybe it's time they understood what they're really dealing with. Ambassador Seojin looked thoughtful. You think they're ready for a demonstration? They need to understand the situation, said Minho, for their own safety. Admiral Vexstar felt a chill run down his spine. What kind of demonstration? Ambassador Seojin sighed softly. Very well. Dr. Wujin, please show them the defense grid. Dr. Wujin touched a control on his floating console. Immediately, every sensor on every Imperial ship began screaming warnings. What's happening? Shouted Admiral Vexstar. Admiral, his sensor officer called out in panic. I'm reading massive energy signatures. They're coming from everywhere. On the main screen, space around them began to change. Lines of light appeared, connecting the human ships in a complex geometric pattern. The pattern grew larger and larger until it enclosed all the Imperial vessels. This is a standard defensive formation, explained Dr. Wujin casually. If someone were to attack any of our ships, the energy grid would automatically respond. Respond how? Asked Chancellor Mordok, his voice barely a whisper. Well, it would depend on the level of threat, said Dr. Wujin thoughtfully. For minor threats, it might just disable their weapons. For moderate threats, it could stop their engines. For serious threats, he didn't finish the sentence. Admiral Vexstar stared at his sensors. The energy readings were off the scale. The human defensive grid contained more power than his entire fleet combined. This is what you call a peaceful first contact? He asked weakly. Of course, said Ambassador Seojin, we're not threatening you. We're just showing you our capabilities so you can make informed decisions. Captain Morjith's voice was shaking. Informed decisions about what? Ambassador Seojin's expression became serious. About whether you want to be our friends or our problem. The communication channel fell silent. Every Imperial officer was thinking the same thing. If this was what human peaceful technology could do, what would happen if they became angry? We've been watching your empire for 50 years, continued Ambassador Se. We've seen you conquer peaceful worlds. We've seen you destroy civilizations that couldn't defend themselves. We've seen you take resources and leave nothing behind. That's how empires survive, protested Senator Kalthex. No, said Ambassador Seojin firmly. That's how empires die. We've studied 10,000 dead civilizations. They all made the same mistake. They thought strength meant making others weak. Dr. Wujin added, real strength means making everyone stronger. Real power means helping others succeed. Real wisdom means learning from everyone you meet. So what do you want from us? Asked Chancellor Mordu. We want to offer you a choice, said Ambassador S. You can continue as you are, conquering and destroying until you eventually destroy yourselves. Or you can learn a better way. And if we refuse, Ambassador Seojin's smile was sad but determined. Then we'll protect the civilizations you threaten. We've been doing it quietly for years. Now we're doing it openly. Admiral Vexstar understood. The humans weren't planning to conquer the empire. They were planning to make conquest impossible. We're not your enemies, said Ambassador Seojin gently. We're teachers. If you want to learn, we're protectors. If you threaten the innocent, we're friends. If you choose friendship, she paused, looking directly at the camera. The choice is yours. But understand this, the galaxy is no longer a place where the biggest ships rule. The age of conquest is over. The age of cooperation has begun. The energy grid around the Imperial ships faded away. The human vessels began to move into a peaceful formation. We'll give you time to think, said Ambassador Seojin. When you're ready to talk about the future, instead of fighting about the past, we'll be here. Admiral Vexstar sat in his command chair, staring at the impossible ships surrounding his fleet. For the first time in his military career, he was completely outmatched. But somehow, he didn't feel defeated. He felt like he was being offered a chance to become something better. The Galactic Empire's age of dominance was over. The age of learning was about to begin.